What if you could put a single number on your own mind? It sounds like science fiction, right? Well, for over a century, that's exactly what we've tried to do. Today, we're going to dive into the complex, controversial, and absolutely fascinating history of how we measure intelligence. I mean, think about it. It's a question we all have a gut feeling for. We can all point to people we think are brilliant or remember moments when we felt really sharp. But here's the crazy thing. For more than 100 years, the smartest people in the world have been locked in a huge debate over that exact question. It's this concept we all get, but find almost impossible to pin down. Okay, so first things first, before you can measure something, you have to know what it is, right? And this is where the whole story gets messy, like right from the get-go. Intelligence is something that feels so familiar to us, but for scientists, defining it has been a real challenge. All right, so here is the textbook definition, more or less, but look closely. It's not just one thing, is it? It's the ability to learn stuff, to think abstractly, to adapt when things change, and to solve problems. It's a whole package deal, which, you can probably guess, makes it super hard to boil down to just one number. And believe me, the urge to try and measure all that, it's not new at all. It's got this long, kind of complicated history, and where it all started? Yeah, that might actually surprise you. The story really kicks off in the late 1800s with this guy, Francis Galton, who was convinced intelligence was all in your genes. But the real game changer? That came in 1905. Alfred Binet wasn't trying to rank people from smart to not smart. Nope, he was actually trying to help kids. His whole test was designed to find school children in France who were falling behind and needed a little extra support. See, it was a tool for assistance, not for creating a hierarchy. But then, in 1916, Louis Terman brought the idea to the US, adapted it into the famous Stanford Binet test, and suddenly, the idea of the IQ just exploded into popular culture. So as soon as these tests became a thing, this massive debate kicked off. And it's a fight that's still raging today, really. The core question is this. Is intelligence just one thing? Or are there a whole bunch of different ways to be smart? And this slide, it just perfectly lays out the two big competing ideas. On one side, you've got the G factor, this idea that there's one single general intelligence that powers everything else you do. And on the other side, the theory of multiple intelligences, which basically says, hold on, there are lots of different, separate kinds of smarts. Okay, let's zoom in on that first idea, the G factor. Proposed by Charles Spearman, his theory was that we all have this underlying mental engine. The best analogy, and you see it right here, is a computer's processing power. A faster processor just makes everything run better, whether you're gaming or working on a spreadsheet. Spearman argued G works kind of like that for our brains. But then Howard Gardner comes along and just throws a wrench in the whole thing. He's like, wait a minute. What about the incredible poet who can barely catch a ball, or the world-class athlete who bombs a math test? He proposed at least 8 different kinds of intelligences. Are you word smart, people smart, maybe your body smart? His whole point was that these are totally separate abilities, not just different flavors of one big G factor. Okay, so we've got these two big theories battling it out. But how do we get from these abstract ideas about intelligence to that 3-digit number we've all heard of, the IQ score? Right, and this is absolutely crucial to understand. An IQ, or intelligence quotient, isn't like taking your brain's temperature. It's not a direct measurement of what's going on in your head. It is a score you get on a standardized test. The big ones, the ones used practically everywhere, are the Stanford Binet and the Wechsler scales. And what they do is test you on a bunch of different cognitive skills and then compare how you did to a huge group of people your own age. Now, this is where things get really weird and interesting. For decades, researchers started noticing this strange pattern. Average IQ scores were actually going up, generation after generation. It's called the Flynn effect. What it means is, if you scored an average 100 on an IQ test today, you might have been considered well above average 50 years ago. It's this wild puzzle we're still trying to figure out, and it's the reason these tests have to be constantly updated just to keep the average pegged at 100. But this brings us to probably the most critical, and honestly, the most difficult part of this whole story. Because measuring intelligence isn't just some abstract scientific exercise. It has real, profound impacts on people's lives. Yeah, this quote from our source material it hits the nail on the head. Measurement is never simply a technical act. It is embedded in social structures that distribute opportunity and shape expectations. Think about that. These scores have been used to open doors for some people and slam them shut for others. They change how we see ourselves and how society sees us. So the question of fairness, that's not just some academic debate, it's everything. Which, of course, leads us to the one giant question that looms over this entire field. I mean, if a test is designed and written by people from one specific culture, can it ever be truly fair when measuring the intelligence of someone from a totally different background? And the overwhelming evidence says probably not. Cultural bias is a massive, massive hurdle. You see, test questions can be loaded with vocabulary or ways of thinking that are just way more familiar to one group than another. Your schooling, your background, your life experiences, all of it can dramatically change how you perform. That's why people have tried to make culturally adapted tests, like the Binet Kamat test in India, which uses references that actually make sense there. But here's the kicker. Even the so-called culture-fair tests, the ones that just use shapes and puzzles, still have some built-in assumptions. So, wow, after more than 100 years of debates, tests, and a whole lot of controversy, where does that leave us? Well, the consensus today is moving towards a much bigger, more holistic picture. And if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this right here. Intelligence is not some single, fixed number that's stamped on you for life. It's a dynamic, moving, changing thing. It's an interaction between your natural abilities, the environment you grow up in, and the opportunities you're given. The goal of measurement shouldn't be to create a hierarchy, but to understand how we can help every person reach their full potential. So in the end, we have to leave it on a question, don't we? Standard tests are good at measuring certain types of analytical skills, we can't deny that. But they don't capture creativity or emotional intelligence or wisdom or just plain old street smarts. So as we continue this quest to understand the mind, we have to keep asking ourselves, what parts of our incredible human potential are we measuring and what crucial parts are we missing?